So I've been wanting to make this video for a while now. I wanted to talk a little bit about how I built Atrium. Behind the scenes, all the planning and effort that actually goes into this. It's a lot more than just vibe coding. As you can see on the screen right now, I've got 3,712 commits. Not all of those are the most substantive commits in the world, but nevertheless, almost 4,000 commits, 80 epics, 265 stories, 750 almost 1,000 lines of code, and that's in 100 days. Building by myself. I started this March 28th was my first commit. It's July 6th now. So 100 days in, 80 epics completed. Every single one of those epics represents a major feature in Atrium. And it's not even all of it. There's been a lot of work that's been done outside of epics and stories, ad hoc, some of it vibe coding. I do vibe code. Yeah, it's a lot of work to get done in 100 days. And I want to talk about it a little bit. So how does this get done? I mean, at the end of the day, it all boils down to planning out your work. Because it's very easy to sit down and chat with Claude or Codex or Cursor and tell them to add a feature and sit there and wait 10 minutes or 15 minutes until they finish and then look at it and iterate and go from there and build out a bunch of features. It's not the best way to build. It definitely has its place, but it's not the best way to build, and it's not the fastest, most efficient way to build. Doesn't serve you at all while you sleep or while you're away from your computer. That's where planning and documentation comes in. So these agents have gotten so smart now. They're very, very good at following instructions. So the better your plan is, the more detailed your plan is, the more they can execute on automation without you being there. So what I do is I use a framework, a planning framework called BMAD. I've been using this since V2 over a year ago now. I think back in March of last year I started using it, March, April, something like that. And it's on V6 now. It's an open source project. If you're not familiar with it, it's got like 50,000 stars on GitHub. It's got a very, very lively Discord community, but it's an amazing, amazing planning framework. I highly recommend it to anybody that hasn't used it. If you haven't done any sort of spec-driven development or anything like that with AI, BMAD is a really great way to get yourself into it. If you are really familiar with architecture and spec-driven development, BMAD will feel so natural to you. If you've ever worked on a product team and gone through planning phases with PRDs and architecture documents and epics and stories and sprints and that sort of thing, BMAD will fit right into what you're familiar with. So the idea with BMAD is that you've got, you've got a team of agents whose responsibility it is to work with you to plan and design your feature before you build it. And that means going from the highest levels all the way down to the granular nitty-gritty details of how you're going to execute the story and write the story. But it all starts with the product brief. That's where I started with with Atrium. I spoke with the analyst agent, and you go back and forth with these agents. It's designed around Socratic dialogue, so they will push you to try and get ideas and thoughts out of you and see where your head's at and like really grill you to figure out what you're trying to build, why you're trying to build it, how you want to build it. But started out with the analyst agent. I had a problem. My iTerm had crashed and I lost a bunch of Claude sessions and I was pissed and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna build my own tool because nothing out there does it the way I want to. So I got on with the analyst, told her I want to build this tool that can automatically resume all of my CLI sessions. How can we do it? Talked back and forth, eventually got the product brief. From there, you take the product brief and then you feed it into the next phase. So BMAD's all broken down into all these phases that each have their own detailed workflows. So the next phase after that is the PRD, your project requirement documentation. And that's where you talk with another agent to figure out what are all the detailed requirements, all the functional requirements, all the non-functional requirements, put that all together into a detailed document, detailed list of every requirement, and then you feed that into the architect. And the architect plans out all your architecture, talks back and forth with you, figures out what you want your tech stack to be, what libraries you want to use, how you want to build it, what all the more technical requirements are going to be of the project as you build. So you go from there and then you plan out your epics and then your stories. So you can see how it's getting broken down further and further and further. Once you have those stories, BMAD has a dev agent, and this dev agent is an expert at executing on the stories that are written through BMAD. Really, really good stories, very detailed. I'll show you some of them. Let me just pull up, here's some BMAD implementation artifacts. Here's like the first story. You can see we've got acceptance criteria in the given, when, then format, which AI is really, really good at understanding and following. Breaks it down into tasks and subtasks. Let's see, knocks it out. Dev notes, architecture compliance, tech stack, Rust crates. And this is scratching the surface. This is once you get to the very end, you're going to see the sort of documentation handed to each agent and they're going to execute on it. And you'll go from there. But there's a lot more documentation upstream of this. You can even, there's even a UX agent. Let's see, let's open one of our mocks here. So you can design your feature. This is a feature right here that I worked on a while ago, the timeline. But yeah, BMAD's super powerful in this regard. You can plan out very, very, very complex projects with it. A lot of the time that we had with Fable, I spent it actually writing out architecture documents and epics and stories so that once Fable is gone, I can just hand that to Opus or Codex and execute with really solid plans. So this is essentially how I planned this out, but it goes a lot deeper than that as well. This is really great, but the way BMAD is written, it's very, very much designed for you to be in the loop at every step. And there's an expectation that you are executing a story with an agent, and then you're reviewing the agent's code, and then you go on to the next story, and you move step by step like that through stories, which you can imagine if you're executing a series of 5 epics that each have 5 stories, 25 stories. If it takes 10 minutes to write the story, if it takes 15 minutes to dev the story, if it takes 10 minutes to code review the story, write the QA, you're looking at like 30, 40 minutes per story. It's gonna take you forever. So how did I do 265 stories in 100 days, 80 epics in 100 days? I built an autonomous build loop, basically, and this is a very simple skill. It's advanced quite a bit. I've actually got a new version, the autonomous build polyglot, which based on Fable's expertise at orchestrating agents, I actually rewrote the autonomous build script to utilize different types of agents. But I'll show you the original. This actually isn't even the original. This is an optimized one that I updated not too long ago. But the core idea here is that there's this like dev loop, the story loop. So you select to create a story. And so this skill creates an orchestrating agent who will spawn a subagent to select or create a story. Once it creates the story, it'll spawn another subagent to build the story. And at the same time, it will start creating the next story. Once that's done, it'll go through a code review phase. It'll iterate on that code review up to 3 times before it moves on. And then it'll go through a review fix loop. These are all done with individual subagents, so not polluting the orchestrator's context. And all of them are starting with completely fresh context every time. And that's just a proven method to improve LLM execution. So very, very important that you do it with subagents. And then it'll commit. And then once it completes an epic, it'll go through this epic transition gate, which is a really, really cool feature of BMAD, where after you complete an epic, your agents can essentially run a retrospective, and you can be involved in this if you want. I have rewritten or kind of augmented the retrospective skill in BMAD to be fully autonomous. So it happens overnight while I'm sleeping. So they'll go through the epic transition gate where they run a retrospective, and any findings from the previous epic then get absorbed into all of your documentation, all your BMAD documentation. So it'll get plugged into your PRD, it'll get plugged into your architecture documents. It'll be used to update upcoming stories with anything that might have changed. Because sometimes, even Fable will go in and write a story, and there's things that it doesn't know about, things that it has trouble seeing on the surface. But once an agent gets in there and starts actually building a story, it sees all of the code that's there, and it might encounter some gotcha or something that it has to do because its original idea didn't pass tests or didn't pass verification or something. So plans change, just as with human engineers, but it's really, really important to be able to document that and make it durable information that your agents can use going forward. So autonomous retrospective gets executed. The course correction, this is what I was talking about. After the retrospective, it goes and bakes it back into all of your documentation. That's it's explicitly called course correction in BMAD. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Then it'll iterate to the next story, and it'll keep doing that. I usually instruct my agents to execute like a series of epics that are related to a specific feature. I'll spin them up in worktrees. You can see I've got one going right now. Probably just hit my limit here. Yep. Goodbye, Fable. We're switching this to Opus. We are enhancing Atrium's memory system right now, and that's what's going on here. I had Fable upgrade our memory system to a V2. It's going to be really, really cool. I'll talk about that more though. I don't want to get hung up on it, but what's going on here is this agent is basically an orchestrator running my autonomous build. I think right now it's executing, it's right here, executing 14 stories across, I think it's 4 epics. Yeah, 4 epics. A lot slower than it should be. Normally it's much, much faster. It's just slow because I was using Fable as the orchestrator, and I was running like 2 other epics at the same time and ran into limits left and right. So this has been running for a couple days now. Normally these 14 stories probably execute to completion overnight. I run a lot of these on high or X high, and I'm usually completing a story like every 30 to 45 minutes. So you can run like 15, 20 stories overnight and really knock out a bunch of work. Now you might say, what happens after all that work is done? What do you do? Where do you go from there? It's never perfect. Even I've run epics with Fable just to test it out. I ran a couple of epics with Fable. There were bugs. There's always bugs. There's always errors. Obviously you can invest very heavily in verification loops and things like that, but very token intensive sometimes. So I do that when I have the tokens, and I move on otherwise. But once it's all done, I come back, I wake up in the morning, spend a couple of hours looking at what it's built, review it, fix it. Usually it's very close because the documentation just does such a good job of instructing the agents. And I spend a couple of hours fixing stuff up. Sometimes it'll be a little bit more difficult, so I'll come back in the evening after work and knock out a few more things. But that's essentially my loop. And that's how I've built Atrium entirely from day one. This is the method that I've used, tried and true, across 80 epics, and what do we say, 265 stories, something like that. 265 stories, nearing on 1 million lines of code, and just a lot. 37 commits a day, 5,000 files. I could go on the stats, but this is 100 days worth of work, very, very largely fully autonomous. Obviously, I'm at the computer a ton. I've got tons of conversations going on, new features I'm building, new features I'm designing. I like to start up just ad hoc conversations with agents, flesh out ideas, brainstorm a little bit, use maybe a couple of like brainstorming or grilling skills to get my mind going. And then I'll take that and I'll feed it to another agent and instruct it to design the architecture, and then take the architecture, build the epics, the stories, and then spin up a work tree and execute. And I'm able to ship new features, new major features every day, every 2 days, every 3 days at most, even for some of the more complex features. So very, very powerful technique. If you haven't done spec-driven development, if you haven't used BMAD, I highly recommend it. Just go on GitHub, look for BMAD-method. Amazing project, amazing framework, and there's a lot more work going into it now, more than ever before. I think it's by far my favorite spec-driven development framework, and it gives you really, really solid foundation for your architecture and design and everything like that. So highly recommend it. Check it out. And if you haven't tried it yet, try out Atrium, get atrium.dev. I hope you guys find this useful. Happy to answer any questions. If you have questions, hit me up in the comments or anywhere else. Happy to talk more about it. Try it out. Let me know what you think. Let me know how BMAD works for you. Let me know how Atrium works for you. Thanks. See y'all.